It's been 50 years since these houses were last occupied. Pintedatilo is one of many ghost towns in Calabria, but perhaps it's just too beautiful to be abandoned completely. Rosella Aquilanti has lived in these barren hills for the past 40 years.
Dov'è la Clara? Ah, là. Leon! Aramis! Aramis! Ciao! Ciao, ciao, ciao!
She still tends to her goats every morning, but for the past 2 years, she's no longer been alone. Now she has Maka Tunkara at her side.
Let's fly.
Maka comes from a small village in southwestern Mali, where he worked as a shepherd and farmer. That was before he came to Europe as a refugee.
Okay, Maka, you can start. Oh, stracciatella, these are my beautiful ones. Yes, you're pretty. Pretty, pretty, pretty. If you live in the countryside, you need animals, especially if you want to be self-sufficient. They're important for us and for the land. They provide us with food. They need something to live on themselves, but they give so much back.
But Rosella is now 63 and can no longer manage all the work on her own. Maka came just at the right time. Rosella met him 2 years ago at a refugee shelter. She'd long been on the lookout for someone to help her, but hadn't found anyone willing to live and work with her in this remote location.
Maka is great. He's so kind, very respectful, and not afraid of hard work. He also knows what he's doing. And in fact, he actually likes being here because it's so much like his own country, so he feels at home. We work really well together.
The Calabria region is suffering from a prolonged drought. Maka sometimes walks with the goats for half a day to find food for them. Moving from place to place and working hard in search of a better future is a way of life that Maka is no stranger to. When he left Mali, he got by doing odd jobs, first in Algeria, then in Niger, and then in Libya. But his goal was to get to Europe. After 6 years, he finally made it onto a refugee boat that took him across the Mediterranean to Sicily. Later, he came to Calabria.
I like it here. It's nice. But the problem is that there's nobody here. No one lives here. It's just the two of us in Pintedatilo. So it's not easy.
There are hardly any jobs in Calabria and few prospects. Youth unemployment stands at 37%, the highest in Italy. Many just want to leave. But for Maka, this very place has provided the opportunity he was looking for. Rosella, meanwhile, has carried home the fresh goat milk. Back to the village where no one else lives. Pintedatilo is one of 20 so-called ghost towns in Calabria. Italy's poorer south is strewn with deserted villages. When Rosella first came to Pintedatilo, the village had already been uninhabited for 10 years. That was back in 1983, when she was in her early 20s and searching for a life of freedom and independence.
This house will collapse soon. The roof is already gone. When I arrived here, the house was all still intact. There was another here too.
The village of Pintedatilo dates back to the year 640 BC. After several landslides, the village was finally abandoned in the early 1970s. All the remaining residents had to leave their homes. But Rosella came with the intention of staying right from the start. She gave up her job as a postal worker near Milan and left her old life behind her.
Many people are shocked when they hear that I live in an abandoned village. Many are so afraid of being lonely. They even fear silence. But others admire me because I lead such a simple life. And somehow I'm keeping this place alive. Otherwise, it would really be a ghost town.
On the slopes around the village, Rosella harvests wild herbs. She calls this area her secret garden.
I can't say what drove me to come here. There are some things where, even 40 years later, you still wonder why you did them. But what I like about this place most is the incredible environment. Every moment is a moment of ecstasy, of meditation, because it's so beautiful. Maybe I came back here to inspire young people to work with their hands again. I've always found it satisfying to work hard, to sweat, and then see the fruits of my labor afterwards.
But the drought of recent years has made her life more difficult. She couldn't have a vegetable garden that needs a lot of water. And so Rosella has learned to live from the little that nature provides her with. Casa Rosella. This is her home. When she first moved here, she persuaded the previous owners to sell her the house for a good price. It's time for lunch. Garlic, rocket salad, and some dandelion. Rosella doesn't need much more.
We do have pasta. I'll mix in the sad-looking vegetables, which is all I can harvest in this desert landscape, and add a few old potatoes.
Maka's room is right next door. He has his own cooking facilities and has prepared some meat and liver from one of the goats, served with a spicy sauce and couscous. Italian cuisine is still not really his thing.
I love cooking. And Malian food is the best.
Maka is almost obsessed with cooking. I always tell him, "You're a real chef." I think it's also a way for him to reconnect with his homeland and the familiar tastes of home. Maka, hurry up. I'm ready. You too?
They may cook separately, but they still eat together.
Buon appetito.
Conversation at the table is limited. Maka can't yet speak enough Italian.
Bravo.
Want to try mine?
Assaggiare questo?
No?
No.
We often disagree. He wants to do things his way, and I want to do them my way. He's young, and I'm old. That's life. At some stage, the older generation has to make way for the young. Does school start again today?
They may not share their food or always agree, but Rosella and Maka have decided they'll be there for one another.
I think Rosella also sees that I feel at home here. That's why I give my all when I'm working. For me, it's like working for my own mother. So I do my best.
It's an arrangement that benefits them both. Maka has a work contract, wages, and a new home. And Rosella can continue living here in her own personal paradise because of his help. Twice a week, Maka rides his bike to a neighboring town where he's learning Italian. He never got to go to school in Mali.
Off we go.
But first he has to carry his bike until he reaches a road.
I like going to school. Education gives you freedom and independence. Sometimes I still feel lonely here because I don't speak the language well. It's difficult to communicate. I hope that by going to school I will understand more and more Italian and things will change.
After Maka landed in Sicily in 2018, he spent 2 years being moved from one refugee shelter to another. His residency status has still not been clarified to this day. But here in Calabria, Maka has regained some of his freedom.
You never know what to expect when you come to a new place. Maybe it would be the same if a European, who had only a vague idea of Mali, went to live there. It's usually not what you thought. And that's how it was for me.
The evening classes are free of charge and a real opportunity for Maka. Knowledge of Italian and a permanent job with Rosella are exactly what he needs to be granted an official visa.
Maka really needs to learn Italian and get a driver's license. Then he can decide what he wants to do with his life. But he needs these basics, especially the language. I think that's the most important thing right now. After that, we'll have to see.
At the end of the summer, Rosella prepares supplies to carry them through the winter.
We only have to buy a very few things, because we produce most of our food ourselves. And thanks to the goats, we always have meat, milk and cheese. I try to be as self-sufficient as possible, because I don't like going to the supermarket. I never know what to buy when I see all those polished vegetables and packaging. I feel really uncomfortable.
Instead, she preserves everything herself. First, she marinates the summer vegetables in brine for 2 weeks. Then she mixes the aubergines, carrots, and peppers with fresh herbs and lots of olive oil.
The olive oil is such a blessing. It has life in it. Now I use my hands. I prefer to do it with my hands. Look, it has all the goodness and energy of the summer sun in it. That will help warm us up in winter. It's beautiful.
Bello, no?
Many have been fascinated by Rosella and her way of life. They wanted to join her in this ghost town, but none of them stayed for long.
I can't imagine any other life. There's nothing that I would change. And thank God, I had the great fortune of meeting Maka, who makes it possible for me to continue. I've had friends in the past who would say, "Let's live here together. Let's set up a community." But in the end, I was always on my own again because they didn't have the willpower or the courage to follow through.
Just behind the village is the old olive grove. Some of the trees that are here now were bought by Rosella many years ago.
Grab the nets, Maka.
Un rotolo di reti, Maka.
Rosella and Maka aren't expecting a bumper harvest because of the drought. Another problem is that the goats like to nibble at the trees. But Rosella doesn't let any of it get her down.
See how good it is here? The air that we're breathing is so clean. And sure, it's windy sometimes, but I feel so alive. I can feel nature, and I never get tired of it. What do you think? Is that okay?
They've spread out the net so Maka can now start to rake the olives from the trees. He did this job while in Libya. Back then, he was harvesting olives to raise money for the traffickers and the refugee boat.
My fiancée is waiting for me in Mali. I can't bring her here, as it would just be too expensive.
Instead, Maka sends most of the money that he earns back to Mali. In this way, he's supporting his mother and enabling his fiancée to study.
It's important that she studies. I don't have that option. But in the end, it's good for both of us. I'm supporting her now, and she will help me in the future.
Rosella.
Are you ready, Maka?
Sì.
Shall we start?
It's time for him to do his homework. Maka never learned to read and write. Now he wants to make up for lost time and learn Italian too.
Un, due, tre.
And for that, he needs Rosella's help.
Ne, ge,
Negli.
le, ge,
Negli.
nelgi,
Gli.
nelgi, i.
C'è.
Ti,
Che cosa
What's an
sono?
object?
c'è,
An object?
oggetti. No, non è.
Questo
What's this here?
Matita.
A pencil.
Exactly, the pencil is an object.
È stato così.
I got so emotional when he started reading. I felt like a mother when her son starts to spell. It happens little by little. And that's how it was with Maka, until he got to the point where he was able to read.
A un certo punto, piano piano, riusciva a leggere. Taba?
Tabacchi.
Ecco.
Tabacchi. Tabacchi. Hali kalam vraiment nyere sina.
She's been helping me so much since I came here. She helps me with school too. Thanks to her, I can now read and write a little bit. I can now write my own name too.
Once a year, Pentedatilo is awakened from its slumber. It's all thanks to this man, Emanuele Milazzi. He grew up just a few kilometers from here and remembers the ghost town from his youth. He would come here secretly with friends, and they would scare each other by telling horror stories.
Rossella,
Chi è? Chi è?
allora?
It's been so long.
How you've grown.
That's because I have a daughter now, but you're the same as ever.
I'd forgotten how tall you are.
The sun is beautiful.
We need rain.
No, there's the festival.
Okay, in 2 days.
3.
Emanuele works as a screenwriter in Milan. He left Calabria to go to university and pursue his dream. But he's never forgotten his roots. And every year, he organizes an international short film festival in Pentedatilo.
Visitors from all over the world will be on this terrace during the film festival. Pentedatilo will come alive again. Suddenly you hear voices, the windows are open, there are lights in the narrow alleyways.
But normal life in Calabria otherwise looks very different. 300,000 people have left the region in the last 10 years alone. The brain drain is a real problem. Emanuele knows that from his own experience.
Pentedattilo is like a lost world, but we all long for this world. We carry it inside us. Who wouldn't like to be able to work in the area where they come from, where their roots are? But mostly that's not possible. And the film festival is my way of saying, let's come back here.
And come they do. Even though Pentedattilo is no longer accessible by car. From the end of the road, they have to make the steep climb on foot. The festival draws tourists, filmmakers, and film lovers from all over the world. Hundreds of visitors flood into the ghost town for 3 days.
Here are a few more posters. People are arriving, so please make sure the posters are in prominent locations.
Rosella also has her work cut out for her during the festival.
Pentedattilo is alive again.
She's cooking for some of the visitors. Manuelo has come to help her. He's a chef by trade and grew up in Calabria, but these days he lives and works in Berlin.
Whenever I come to Calabria, I always try to spend a few days with Rossella. We're cut from the same cloth. I love to help her.
We work and have fun together.
I love working with her.
It's as busy in the kitchen as it is outside in the village. And Rosella can earn some extra money.
Normally my life is very quiet. But during the film festival, everything is different. Friends come to see us, we cook for them, and they leave us a small donation.
She cooks for up to 40 people a day. And the film festival isn't the only time when Rosella profits from the magical charm of her home. Throughout the summer, she rents out rooms to tourists and cooks for her guests.
I'm a simple person. What I do, I enjoy. Now, for example, preparing all the food is stressful, but I enjoy doing it. Because when I see that people are happy and when they tell me, oh, it's so good, I get back the energy I invested.
Her terrace is now full of visitors.
So everyone wants goat meat? A little to try? Okay.
Her ghost town has come back to life. Finally, the streets are filled with life again. The film festival feels like a ray of hope. Could Pentedattilo have a future after all? Could art and culture help to revive this ghost town?
The film festival is a gesture, if you like. We are not the ones who can change the fate of this village. That would take planning. We're doing what we can to keep this place alive. But there's so much to do, and we can't do it alone.
For Maka, too, it's a special time. It's his first film festival, and a friend of his has come along too. Khalifa is also from Mali. The two of them met in Calabria.
I have a friend visiting. That makes me very happy. It's nice to see so many people here and to watch films. It's great.
Maka never went to a cinema in Mali. Now there's a whole film festival on his doorstep, and people have come from all over the world. The days were long during the festival, but very satisfying. For Rosella, too. The guests have now gone, and Pentedatilo is once again a ghost town. The place that Rosella once fell in love with.
I need the quiet. When things get too much for me, I like to come here. Maybe that's the reason why I'm here, to show the world that you can actually live with very little, without this constant craving for more. It's an unhealthy craving that never makes you happy.
The secret of Rosella's happiness is a simple life, which she's found here. If the abandoned villages of Calabria are to have a future, it will take people like Rosella and Maka. People with a vision who are willing to put in the work. Those who can perhaps learn to live with less. Rosella is convinced there are others like her out there.
I'm optimistic about the future of Pentedatilo. Once you see it, you can never forget it. A lot of young people approach me and offer to help. I find this so beautiful. And maybe something new will be born here in the future.
Rosella and Maka don't get any support from the authorities, so they put in the work themselves to keep the streets free from rubble. They won't give up on Pentedatilo, and they know they can count on each other.
I won't leave her. I would never even consider leaving her. I don't know what else life has in store for me. But I know one thing. I will stay by Rosella's side.